that
time of
little
year.
Holly Miss Molly there, or Jolly Miss Molly.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought that was
Have you met him?
It's breakfast time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that makes Stonewall nice is that everybody goes, it's crowded.
I know I had
There's not too many
seen,
people
I
in
didn't
the wait
know.
list. It's gonna be empty till you get a little bit of traffic.
We good? It's okay. It's all right. There's lots of things we need.
chief and everything else.
Everybody ready? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Board of Directors meeting for the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency. We'll start by calling the roll of the board members. I'm Kathy Murphy.
Ricky Brown.
Dirk Sonneborn and Steve Thompson.
Thank you very much. Proof of notice was properly served and posted for this meeting. First order of business is to consider the minutes of our last meeting. Approval of those minutes for that meeting held December 19th. Excuse me. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dirk. Second.
Second.
Second, Ricky. Thank you. Any corrections, changes, comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. I'm happy to report the Finance Committee met January 12th. No, whatever. Eric, when did we meet?
Sometime in
I
2024.
just don't want to give you the wrong date.
January.
We met during the month of January.
Yes, during the month of January, prior to this meeting. And we were happy to consider in great detail the two requests that you will find on your agenda towards the bottom. One for a co-application of the Choice Neighborhood Initiative with the city and SHA for a HUD Act grant that you'll hear more about, and the other for a continued investment in our housing study and housing strategy as the next phase begins for that strategy. We additionally reviewed the agency's finances and found everything to be in order. There was a positive recommendation for this board to consider, excuse me, both of those requests today. Is there anything additional that anyone would like to add? If not, that is the conclusion of the Finance Committee report. Thank you, which took place on Wednesday, January 10th. Thank you, Eric. Next item on the agenda, under new business, I will note, as it is in your agenda, the public hearing for McCarthy Manor Housing, which was scheduled for this morning, is postponed until further notice. First item for Sue is Syracuse Community Hotel Restoration, or the Hotel Syracuse, as we know it.
Morning, everyone. In your agenda is a resolution and correspondence from the hotel. As you know, they closed and rehabbed the entire hotel. It's doing very well. They originally had a $61,345,000 mortgage on the property through M&T. It closed in 2015. They are now looking to refinance that, which will save them a significant amount in debt service. They're looking to refinance somewhere between $37 and $40 million of the original debt. They're not seeking any new or additional financial assistance. Seeker was previously done and does not need to be redone with respect to the request before you. As you know from prior transactions where refinances have happened, your original lease transaction anticipates that you will participate in refinancings of facilities. So this is seeking your authority to participate in that refinancing.
Questions, comments, concerns? No? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the refinancing? Thank you, Ricky. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Dirk. Last call for comments, questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carried. Thank you. Next item is consideration of a request for the extension of our sales tax appointment for the 400 South Salina Street City Center project, the old Sibley's building. Sue.
Good morning, everyone. In your packet is a resolution with a request from the company to extend their sales tax appointment. They are not looking for additional financial assistance. They are just looking for an additional period of time to spend the exemption that you provided them so that they can finish the build-out. The original appointment terminated 12/31, so last month, the end of last month. They're looking for a retroactive appointment from January 1st of this year through the end of this year so that they can, in fact, complete their tenant build-out. They have approximately $688,000 left of the exemption that was awarded.
I don't know if anybody's been there, but it's great. It's really a great project. Yep. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second? Second. Ricky, last call for comments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. It must be the month. Next item, 400 West Division Street, request to extend their sales tax exemption.
I would just like to note for the record, I would appreciate it personally if two projects with the same number in them do not come before us at the same time. It's very confusing at the office.
That's right.
In your agenda is a resolution and correspondence from the company. They are in fact seeking two different things from you at this point. One, they are seeking an extension of their appointment so that they can continue to complete their project, which is at 400 West Division Street, also known as Rapid Response. In addition to that, as outlined in the resolution and in the correspondence, they have experienced several delays, some of which are a continuation from COVID with disruption in supply chain issues. Some are with unexpected issues they found in the soil, with drainage that caused them to have to redo certain things, and all of that has caused ongoing delay. As a result, they have also experienced increased costs of their project, so they are coming back and asking for additional financial assistance with respect to the amount of the state and local sales and use tax. They are looking for an increase of about $685,000. That will require you to authorize a public hearing. You cannot grant that additional financial assistance without holding a public hearing first. So we're not asking you today to make any determination, whether you want to or not, on the sales tax increase. What we're looking for today is the approval of the extension so that they can continue to utilize what you previously granted them and to authorize a public hearing. I just want to give the dates. We are looking to, God bless you, we are looking to extend their appointment through the end of this year, and we're looking to authorize that public hearing.
February.
Presumably, that cost increase has to do with the remediation. You said
I think it's all of the things. It's the additional remediation they had to do. It is also because of the delay, costs of materials have increased. So all of that has increased the cost of their project.
It's still viable, $8 million more, that's like a 30% increase in cost.
They're proceeding, I mean, they're moving forward.
So it's structurally, largely the framing of the building has been complete. There was a number of things they had to go back and repair structurally. There was also some geotechnical soil issues that needed to be remediated as well. All of those issues have been resolved, and now they are moving forward. The project is deemed approximately 40% complete, but they are fully in the intent, and the reason for the request coming back to us is to complete the project.
So we're going to need two motions. A motion to approve the sales tax extension on the project through 12/31/24.
I'll make a motion.
I'll take Ricky's motion, and Steve is a second, if that's okay. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, or concerns on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Second motion would be to entertain a public hearing at our February board meeting for the supplemental application and increased costs into the project.
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. Second.
Second.
Ricky. Comments, questions, concerns? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is for Eric. It is fondly our Coda Teaspoon project. A review of their MWBE utilization and compliance with our new policy and residency compliance, as well as a request for a couple of waivers, I believe. You want to start with what, Eric?
Thank you. Good morning, all. Why don't we begin with the draft MWBE utilization reports and the draft workforce residency report. So I do just want to note and recognize for members of the board, you have copies of those draft reports in front of you, but for anyone who may be interested as well, attending the meeting today, these reports will be posted under the project webpage for the specific project for TLSP CODA on the SIDA website, so they are available for the public to be able to review. So this draft report, it's done in a similar process and structure to what you've seen in the past, but just want to call your attention. We're going to start with the MWBE utilization report. This is the third report that's been submitted by Huber Brewer on behalf as the general contractor for the project. So just to remind everyone on the board, the total exemptions that the project is receiving is $19,970,270. The goal that we set is 10% of the overall abatements for the project. So that's where you see that 1.997027 number. Ultimately, in tracking the project through 3 series of reportings over the last 3 quarters, the total contracted amount for the project is now exceeded $10 million. So $10,205,628. One of the things that we're doing in addition to just the contracted amount is we're tracking the payments that are made to these MWBE firms over the course of the project itself. So I'm going to call your attention to the different columns that have been structured. We do have the payments on the current report, which total out to $1.6 million, so $1,603,482. Previously reported, the total amount paid to these MWBE firms was $2,367,406. Now what we're doing is we're accumulating that, so all the way on the far right-hand side, the total payments to date to certified minority and women-owned businesses up to this point has been $3,970,888. So just already from the point, they've already exceeded the $1.997 million goal. So they've exceeded that 10% amount. Now at the bottom, the way that we have this highlighted, and we really try to make this as easy to read as possible, you're going to see the total contracted amount, the total utilization to date, or that was as of the end of this year on December 31st, 2023. The 10% goal, right now they are already showing 20% utilization based on the total amount paid out to contractors. And then the last thing that we've done is we've broken it out by minority owned businesses, which is $2.2 million, $2,280,882. That's about 11% of that 20% total is going to MBE firms. The women business enterprise is the spending and contracting that's already taken place is $1.7 million, so $1,770,006. That is about a 9% utilization rate. So what we're seeing at the moment, the project has well exceeded that initial goal that was set. You're able to see those payments as they're being made, and there's really an even split between the minority firms as well as the women-owned firms and businesses as well. I will note, and I'm happy to take any questions on the MWBE utilization portion. We are joined by a representative on behalf of the project and from Huber Brewer. But I'll pause on the MWBE reporting if there's any questions. If not, I'm happy to jump to the
So before we start, can I ask you to come up and give us your name and address, please, in case the board has any questions?
Sure. Josh Patrikowski, project manager, Huber Brewer. Personal address?
No.
Oh, so our 148 Berwyn Avenue is Huber Brewer's address.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
Anything you wish to add before we start?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Josh, I had a quick question for you. In terms of the mechanical services out, do you know if Levette Mechanical applied for any of that bidding opportunities?
I don't recall if the name doesn't ring a bell. I don't recall.
And your bidding process, how was your bidding process? Where do you guys advertise, put out your bids to, et cetera?
So we use our software, Procore. that basically has a large inventory of names and addresses, I'll say in the greater central New York area, that we basically shoot out, solicit bids towards the greater Syracuse and central New York area. So those are, we basically break it down by bid package for the appropriate subcontractors, divisions of work, scope of work is within, scope of the project is within, and that is distributed, you know, I'll say in this case, this started back in 2022. I think back in November-ish. So there was some time, you know, we start this process well in advance of the project, and then from there, we basically qualify subcontractors, review numbers based on what we receive.
Lakia Hill was formerly part of your staff in your office. Are you familiar with her?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, I know she was spearheading your MWBE efforts. Have you all replaced her in any capacity, or?
We have not replaced her. However, we have retained her kind of as a consultant.
Okay.
So,
So I'll have a point person. I want to make sure.
yes,
we
yep.
reach out. I think Levette Mechanical would probably qualify for some opportunities on this project, but more specifically, I'd love for them to have a relationship.
Sure.
In terms of an introductory relationship, if you haven't made that connection yet. I know he's state certified, but has capacity in this area. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to say thank you. I think Huber Brewer's been a great guinea pig. I mean, have been a great partner with us.
You are our first one.
But it's great, and these are very easily readable reports, and great to have not only the substance, but the form and the spirit of cooperation. Thank you.
We appreciate
I would second
working
that
as a
as
team.
well, Josh. It has been, you know, as our first, as you know, it has been a little bit of a test, but it has really been a pleasure working with you and the rest of the team at HB. Any further questions, comments, considerations? Thank you, Josh. Anyone wish to speak in the audience to this? Aggie, I'm sure you do. Good morning.
Good morning. Aggie Lane of Urban Jobs Task Force. Given that they basically almost hit the city's MWBE goal, even with almost the split of 12 and 8, any ideas of upping?
Expansion?
Yes, that's it. That's my question.
Expansion and growth, is that what you're looking for, Aggie?
I would hate your bar to be too low.
I understand. Yes, I am sure that that will be a discussion that we will have as a board within the next few months. Now that we have, I believe this is our third quarter report, which has shown steady holding and increasing. You know, there hasn't been any surprises, which is also very good. So I take your comments seriously, and on behalf of the board, I will assure you we're going to take a long, hard look as we move forward on potentially growing that policy.
Kathy, I guess as an aside, that question for me, I would direct at Josh, just in terms of how difficult or not difficult was it for you to reach these goals? And one of the areas where I believe Huber Brewer could be an ambassador towards here, there was a lot of negative connotations around MWBE. Developers had a perception that this program was exceptionally difficult. If they had these goals attached, that it would make it more difficult to be able to complete the project. I think, you know, again, you could be an ambassador for articulating exactly what your efforts were, whether or not they were achievable, and how close do you think that you could get towards pushing this beyond the limits that we have now. And we're not asking you to make that leap, but I'm saying I don't think anyone could speak to that greater than Huber Brewer, who's involved in that process now. By the looks of it, it looks like you've been efficient at being able to reach it. But again, I'd leave that to you to speak on.
You have to come to the mic, Josh, I'm sorry.
So we've attended a few work sessions, I'll say, within the city, community. We've been proactive in reaching out to a lot of these MWB contractors, and, you know, hosted events to kind of bring them in, interview them. So that's kind of our approach. We have a whole list of these contractors available, local and, you know, I'll say 200-mile radius, whatnot, that we solicit to, part of our bidding process, make an honest effort. I think part of the difficulty is the bandwidth of some of these subcontractors.
Capacity, of course.
And as we see, this is going to be a requirement. Sometimes they're tied up and they already have obligations. So that's one component. And then just, again, just the size of the company and what they're able to perform. But such an example, Levette Mechanical, opportunities such as subbing to a larger company or something like that isn't out of the question. And we're constantly on a project of this magnitude, and the pace that we're at, we're asking a lot. We acknowledge that, but we try to pair people. So if there's an opportunity like that and we need more manpower, maybe that's a good opportunity to engage other contractors that might not normally qualify, but to still, you know, given an opportunity.
But it hasn't caused you any undue burden as a business, has it?
No, I mean, it's extra effort, I'll say. Burden, I guess, semantics there, but I would say that it is an additional effort, but we're willing to do it. And it's part of kind of what our vision is. So I know it's important to our company, and how we want to kind of give back to the community and in that manner. So, and what you're seeing now is what's been reported to date. As the project advances, we have some additional subcontractors that will get on this list, that will make this list, and we'll actually, you'll see a little bit better, further participation. Yep.
All right, well, thank you, Josh.
Were these generally the low bidders?
Not always. The key here is qualified. So certain projects require certain qualified. So in some public, like, I'll say this because it's private work, this particular project, we have the opportunity to kind of vet out who we need to. It's not solely low bid. Certainly that plays a component, but not all of it.
Thanks, Josh. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So transitioning to the workforce residency reporting. So again, this is based on data from this most recent quarter, from October 1 through December 31st of last year. So just to explain kind of how this table is laid out, we're looking at the total number of individuals that are on the project site, which is accumulated based on reporting from all of the contractors and reports that we collect. And then we're able to then differentiate and identify which of those labor and workforce reside within the city limits. We have the reporting from this most recent quarter, which is showing 189 workers, laborers on the project site. 13 of those resided within the city. Then you've got the previous quarterly report that showed 157. So we know the project has been scaling up and there's been more workers on site. But a similar 13 city residents have been working as part of that workforce for the project. But one of the things that we've been tracking as well is cumulatively based on the last 3 quarterly reports that have been submitted. That is showing in total, over the course of the project, 275 laborers, workers on site. 32 of those have resided within the city. Just to explain that as well, if you recall the earlier stages of the project, including the demolition, some of the foundation work, that actually had a pretty high participation rate from within the city. That brings us to a total of 12% overall. Just to remind the board, the goal that we've set for the project is 10% residency of the total workforce. Currently, the project is at 12. That'll be something we'll continue to track quarter by quarter. But cumulatively, the project is exceeding the overall goal set.
Thank you, Eric.
I have a question.
Yes.
So does that mean that there have been 32 unique individuals?
Correct.
So the 13 in this current and the 13 in the previous, maybe the same 13, or it may be some the same and some different, but cumulatively,
Correct.
32 residents.
And part of that is just speaking to the previous phases. So there are some contractors that were only working on the initial demolition or just working on the initial framing and the initial part of the projects. Once those contracts have been exhausted, we're still counting those individuals from a cumulative standpoint, but now there's other phases of the project underway.
Just want to say also, just in terms of this quarterly reporting, I'm glad we made a commitment to being able to monitor this as we go along, having some discussions with the county and their processing and utilization goals and rates and so on. And one of the difficulties I just met with Khalid Bay of monitoring their projects is sometimes they get all the way to the end of the project. And so we've discussed now introducing quarterly monitoring as a result. But they'll get all the way through that project and not have those numbers until the end. Contractors already been paid without meeting the commitments that they needed to make. So I think this was a great adjustment for us to go through and make sure that we're doing this on a quarterly basis.
I have to make it as easy to read and understand as possible. So.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. Thanks again, Josh and Hubert Brewer, Eric, for the great report. And we will move on to the requests for waivers from our local access policy.
May I just make a general comment?
You may.
Can I just remind the audience to sign in on the back sheet if you choose to leave before the end of the meeting? Sign in on your way out. We need to keep it for the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're sticking with TLSP CODA. So just for some additional background as well, as the project continues to move and underway, we've had discussions with Hubert Brewer. The request before the board would be there are 4 additional vendors, 4 additional suppliers, and 4 additional contractors that we are seeking a waiver, which the board would need to authorize regarding the local access policy. One of the things that's been included within your board packet is a letter that provides additional justification, explanation, and just by way of background, there's 4 total vendors that are presented before you today. The first one is Whirlpool Corporation. This has to do with the appliances related to the project. They provide an explanation of the fact that they were looking to purchase those directly from the vendor as part of the project, given the fact that they will be having appliances for each and every one of those units for the project. The second one is Locker Envoy LLC, related to the mail room and mail system that's being designed for the project. I should also note, just going back to Whirlpool Corporation, that total contract value is approximately 2.06% of the construction cost, about $1,241,000. Locker Envoy, this is smaller. This is about 0.07% of the total contract cost. That's about $43,923. Moving on to our third waiver request, which is for Intus Windows LLC. So this is related to a specification that is extremely unique to the windows within the project. That is approximately $928,000, about 1.54% of the construction cost. And then lastly, Minsley Marble Manufacturing LLC. This has to do with a specific aspect of the showers that are furnished and equipped within each one of the units. That contract purchase order is for $211,662. It's about 0.35% of the total construction cost. So overall, we do have that explanation, justification in discussions with Hubert Brewer in their efforts and attempt to identify within the 6-county local labor area, but the request before us today is based on that best effort to go through the local labor area. So again, if there are questions, we do have the representative here on behalf of the project.
Thank you.
The whole purpose would be to go directly to the vendors to save money for the project, or what do you say?
Just wanted to speak to it.
That's typically, yes, that would be or it's direct, they only direct supply to us, essentially being the general contractor.
What does that does for the local economy?
Well, as far as like supply, we can't purchase. The only thing on this list would be our appliances. You could purchase them through a local Best Buy or Rollins or some sort of other supplier, I guess. This case, there's 282 units of these. Basically, it's a direct ship to us. So yes, there would be money. There's markup saved for that magnitude, and then also the installation. I can't speak to the installation crews where they'll be coming from. They have opportunity being out of Allentown, PA, I believe. Yeah. They, at this moment, I don't know if they're hiring local installers or not.
Well, I mean, all depends where you buy them from, because all they're gonna do is basically deliver them. They're not gonna hook up, if you got gas stoves or anything like that, they don't do that.
That's right. Plumbers would do the gas, but typically in the past, we've had whoever we're purchasing them from does the installation, with the exception of hooking up a dishwasher, plumbing component.
Plumber will hook up the dishwasher.
Yeah, yeah. But other than that, they typically, distribute it through the building, put them, unbox them, install them, with the exception of plumbing, sometimes electrical. You need to get an electrician engaged to hook something up, hardwired. So,
Yeah, but that would be on your original drawings. If you got some special, some need to be hooked up, that would be in the original blueprint.
that's right.
So by buying directly from the vendor in terms of the appliances, that'll give Hugh Brewer some type of saving for the project. But what does it does for our local economy?
Short of having local installers, I guess not much.
Well, because I'm saying, once they deliver them, I mean, they don't really install them, the appliances. I mean, if you got,
Whirlpool in this case is furnishing and installing these. So they have the contract to furnish and install.
we can't get that on the local level, to have it installed?
We could make a request to have Whirlpool, who our contracts with, to engage local installers.
The whole purpose of this project is for the whole community to benefit, not
Understood.
just HB.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Any questions on the other vendors or suppliers?
Just the windows. I see they're coming from Lithuania.
Yep.
No, obviously, American-made suppliers able to supply that, or stateside?
Well, for the specification, you'd have to start comparing apples and oranges. So it's, this is kind of a unique specification. I will say, I was a little gun shy to use something overseas.
Yeah.
They have been one of the most seamless manufacturers I've ever dealt with in my career. So,
And not impacted by any of the things with the supply chain, obviously, no
No.
delays in
no,
shipping or.
we've got all of them on site. They're going in. They're very well made. They have a team here in the States that supports them, that comes out and shows us how to install them, questions, and unfortunately, they aren't in New York State. I think they're in Pennsylvania, but they're not.
Virginia, I think.
But yeah, there's Virginia. There's a few
Oh, okay.
there's a few folks in the Northeast that help us. But yeah, as they show, Virginia, I think, is probably their headquarters here in the States. Good product. You'd have to match up another window here in the States that you could, and
It's
specifically, here in Syracuse, it's a pretty unique spec, so it was kind of unavoidable.
Josh, can you just remind us what the total cost of the project is?
Total cost of the project on our end is roughly 70 million.
Josh, I apologize for going back. I want to go back and visit with Ken for a minute. What I think you would have been happier with if they'd split the supply and the installation portions of the contract. I mean, you go to Best Buy, that's not local either. They could have bought the product, whether at Whirlpool or Best Buy. But you would have preferred to see, for the good of the community, local plumbing and electrical and whatever installation. Thank you. Just want to make sure I didn't miss the point.
Right, which they are handling. Our MEP contractors are handling those specific components of the install. The uncrating and boxing and moving them into the units is going to be by Whirlpool.
That's why I think this is important. And adding to that is, again, you guys are, for lack of a better term, Dirk used guinea pigs. But you all are our litmus test in terms of what this commitment would look like. And even if we're carving out methodology for future contractors and understanding where they could be more efficient, should they fall short of any of these utilization goals, these are the conversations that we need to be having going forward. Even if, like Dirk said and Ken committed to, you're purchasing elsewhere, but could we have the installation be local so that we can maximize this and, again, be closer to where these goals are or even exceed the goals that are already there? Those are areas for improvement that I think we can look at.
So I hear you. I guess at some point we have to be careful not to micromanage. We've given some broad guidelines and goals. They've chosen to use Whirlpool and their installers for this piece. Gives them more profit perhaps, but they've probably balanced it against something else. If we had a 50%, Aggie got what she really wanted, or whatever, pick a number.
Please don't give her any ideas.
But it would squeeze the GC to the point where it might not be attractive for them to do the project, right? We've got to find a balance where Huber Brewer is making enough money to make it worth their while and to get as much local work done and hiring local people as we can. And there's a balance. To me, so I don't like it either, but I get, maybe they made a choice to use somebody local for something else.
Right. But a lot of times, Bruce, when you're doing a project of this magnitude, I mean, you already know where you're going to get the stuff from in the beginning of the project. You don't build a $100 million project and you get to this point and you don't know where this stuff is coming from. I mean, that's not realistic. You don't go into a project that costs this type of money and not know where you're going to get A, B, and C from.
So I think I hear, if I can crystallize for future purposes of reviewing our policy and how this all works and what we believe would be best, is that we want to emphasize where purchasing has scale that may not be local. Where possible, we'd like to see local installation, local workforce included in the end product of that vendor. Is that a fair?
And just let us know up front.
Right.
So we know what we're dealing with.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. Excuse, any other questions for Josh or comments, concerns? Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Motion for the 4 waivers.
Motion for the 4 waivers is on the table. Is there a second? Second. Any last comments, further discussion? I've made a note, just for the board's purposes, and Eric and Sue, that this piece, the installation piece, will be in our discussion for our policy review. Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Josh. Keep up the good work. Next item on the agenda is the Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. Eric, before we go to that, I just want to note for the board and those in attendance this morning, we entertained a request similar to this at our December board meeting for Choice and some other implementations for up to $85,000. That request has been withdrawn. we will no longer be entertaining that request. However, we will be entertaining this new request this morning for up to $101,000. Eric?
All right, so just to provide some more background, so currently, work is underway on an application proposal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, which is known as the Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. This is an opportunity for up to $50 million that will be focused around the new 15th Ward, the East Adams Transformation Project, and this is an application that we are currently actively underway in coordination with the Syracuse Housing Authority. So the city and the SHA will be the co-applicants. There's a number of different partners involved in this effort, in this initiative, but this would be a request to establish a cooperation agreement with McCormick, Bear, and Salazar, who is really serving as one of the key primary drivers of this initiative. So this would be a request to allocate $101,000, or an amount not to exceed $101,000, focus on advancing the actual grant application itself, which will be due in mid-February. In addition, just to note and call out, that effort is, again, actively underway. The request itself would be that SIDA would contract directly with MBS, or McCormick, Bear, and Salazar, and then continue to see the project through. We will learn later this year, ultimately, if the city is successful. We're expecting around fall of 2024 when those final decisions will be made. But this is an initiative that approximately 2 years ago, there was an application for, which SIDA did participate in. Ultimately, the federal government has made some changes to the program. They've actually increased the amount of funding, and they're now accepting applications every 2 years. So presumably more communities will be funded this time around. And so based on some of these more recent changes, we think Syracuse is well positioned for this opportunity. So we are joined by one of my colleagues from the Department of Neighborhood and Business Development as well, if there are any questions.
When is that award announcement again for this, Eric?
So announcements themselves will be made in fall, later this year in the fall. I don't believe there's an approximate date, but one of the things also that does happen is there's site visits that take place. So as they go through the vetting process, they will then schedule in-person site visits to those finalists. So we will have more notice or clarity on if we're one of those finalists for a site visit, but we don't have the exact date on when it would be announced.
Application deadline, I believe, is, Michelle, February 7th, right? Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Eric, do you have a sense that Blueprint 15, sort of the bigger picture, is going well? Are the players playing nice? Is there at least an attempt to have common vision or open discussion about what the vision will be as we go forward?
Well, so I'll share it from my perspective, both with being involved in the agency, but then also as part of our economic development efforts within the city. So myself and members of our team have the ability to participate in direct discussions, really leading and looking holistically at the neighborhood project as a whole. And so the city has actually allocated, we have a full-time staff person by the name of Sarah Walton. I believe that Sarah's had the opportunity to present before. Really, her mission, goal, purpose, and job description is to help advance the project from the city's perspective and all their roles working with the stakeholders such as MBS and from SH, the Housing Authority. I think that the collective effort between the expertise that we brought in from outside of the community and then really just a lot of the community engagement, the dialogue, working with organizations like Blueprint 15, we've heard, and there's a number of dialogue that's been happening over the years leading up to where we are today. I think that what I've seen is really the stakeholders have all coalesced around this $50 million grant application, because I think that just the size, the scale, and just the importance of being able to leverage this type of funding is really one of the critical pieces to see. Now, it's a multi-phase initiative over a series of many years, but complementing with the work happening that will be underway with I-81, the Viaduct project, and really just the critical need that housing is going to play in this neighborhood. I think from my perspective, there has been an impressive level of coordination happening.
Questions?
Should Michelle answer that question too?
So Eric, or Michelle, is the McCormick, Barron, and Salazar's sole purpose for the grant writing, or are they?
Michelle Sapansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development. Excuse me. So their sole purpose is not the grant writing. They're the kind of primary contractor overseeing the general kind of construction of the redevelopment of the Housing Authority property. The grant itself is encompassing of kind of several aspects of the overall project, but MBS is also a close partner just by nature of them being the firm that the Housing Authority is working with.
So they will continue after the grant is written and?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And this 101 covers that?
Correct.
Up to what point?
That is a good question. I would need to clarify that with Sarah specifically, but we can get that follow-up for you.
So in addition to the investment that's presented before you today, the Syracuse Housing Authority is also directly involved in other funding needed to be able to continue to advance the project. Correct, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before Michelle steps down? Before Michelle. No, okay.
I moved 101.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ricky. Last call for questions or comments. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of an additional authorization for an appropriation of up to $425,000 for the third, what we're internally calling the third phase of the housing study. I believe Michelle is here to do a brief update. Or Eric? Eric.
I think
Sorry, Michelle.
I'll
You start. Yep.
I'll just introduce overall, and then I'll certainly turn it over to Michelle for any additional context I may have missed. So, as the board has been aware, there's been active discussion, dialogue, and work has been underway around the advancing the housing study, which is being undertaken by a firm known as CZB. SIDA directly has participation as part of the steering committee advancing the project itself, which started with that high-level overview of the entire market in the city from a housing perspective, moving then towards really strategy and looking more for the recommendations around implementation. But the request before the agency today and before the board would be to then continue to look towards specific opportunities for implementation and really looking at the best level and highest interventions that would be able to then advance the missions and the goals of the housing study. So this ultimately would entail more neighborhood level planning, direct implementation from a smaller areas within the city. Ultimately, 4 is the proposal before. Ultimately, this would fund 4 different of those really block by block analysis, the interventions and strategies, then leverage and be able to take the analysis, the expertise that CZB has been putting together. They've received direct guidance from the steering committee, which is comprised of geographically throughout the city, neighborhood-wise throughout the city, and a combination of both for-profit developers, nonprofit developers, and housing agencies, and members from within the community. All of that would take place over about an 8 to 10 month process in which CZB would be working and continue to work with city staff and with these neighborhood stakeholders to advance these neighborhood level implementation plans to really put the housing, basically taking the analysis and putting it into implementation.
Action.
And action, yes. And so that is ultimately how the funds would be used. It would be continuing to be led really by the city. Neighborhood business development engagement would continue throughout the course of this project and taking the action of it. But it really is taking, again, the findings, the analysis, and everything that's coming out of the study itself and moving towards neighborhood revitalization.
So I just would add to that, you know, we're currently in the second phase of the housing strategy, and there is a steering committee that was created to work in concert with the consultants and the city, which is actually, I think, a really good steering committee, and I am sitting as a member of the IDA. I believe that this third phase request will be a contract executed between the IDA and the consultant. I just want to say that at that point in time, if there's anything additional that any board member would like to discuss, we can certainly do that at the time that Sue is preparing the contract and the deliverables. Did I forget anything? think the
I was
key
gonna
is
ask
Michelle.
Michelle.
I did forget something.
Did you say the key is Michelle?
No, I wanted to say the key is that this is actually going to bring us from the study to the actionable things that can be done every single day by the right team to actually begin to implement strategies for success.
Yeah,
But
and I
I'm
just
gonna
want to
let Michelle-
add on to that a little bit. So I think kind of where we're at with the second phase that we're currently in for the strategy, which we expect to be officially delivered to the city and the Common Council and the SIDA board and everyone who is interested in the end of April of this year. But the strategy phase is really focused on kind of what does implementation strategy look like citywide. So we've kind of, as Eric mentioned, the city has been kind of divided into block cluster areas that are kind of groups of some of the, if you've had a chance to look into any of the housing study, the earlier maps where kind of the city is broken down based on areas of kind of highest strength of where market conditions are performing the best, down to areas where we're seeing kind of the most distressed property conditions. So the idea is that as a part of the strategy, all areas of the city, with the exception of the areas that are performing extremely well currently, so those really, really high performing areas that we think are kind of positioned to be able to handle themselves, all areas of the city will have a strategy that is kind of developed for them as we continue to kind of build out the waves of the implementation. But the kind of distinction between what we're looking to do to take that kind of at a high level, it's really kind of drilling down on a parcel by parcel basis and really understanding kind of what is the best way that we go about doing the interventions that are needed based on those property characteristics, and then based on the tools that we have available collectively as a part of the city. So kind of understanding that the total cost to cure the conditions within the housing study that's estimated upwards of $1.5 billion, that's a very, very large price tag. So it's kind of incumbent upon all of us to figure out how we can work to do this implementation as efficiently as possible. So I think what we've seen as we've continued to work through the second phases, this second phase, there's a lot of opportunity for us to really kind of fine tune exactly the ways in which the city, various city tools that we have at our disposal compared to various tools that the IDA has at its disposal, how we're making sure that those are in alignment and coordinated so that we're able to kind of make as much impact as we can. I think is where we see the value of moving forward with kind of the phase 3.
Michelle, the mayor recently announced the addition of potentially 2,500 housing units over the next few years. What role will this play in the development of those units, and is it being factored in strategically? And in terms of the timing, I know you committed to potentially April with this being resolved. Will that play a role in that strategy going forward?
Sure. So those numbers were based kind of largely on projects that we know are kind of in the pipeline to date, so not necessarily inclusive of new things that would be happening in addition to what we'd be looking to implement as a part of this. I think the kind of biggest thing to keep in mind with implementation and everything that the housing strategy work is leading us to is that kind of end-to-end block redevelopment needs to be the way that we're approaching how we're thinking about implementation. So on a given block, you're not investing dollars in a block unless you're in on all properties on that block. So that's going to mean that our strategies will be inclusive of a lot of properties that may already be occupied. So whether it's an owner occupant that's looking to do upgrades to their property, or whether it's a property that is in the hands of an absentee owner that we want to figure out how to acquire and get into the hands of a not absentee owner. Those are all of the things that we want to make sure are kind of pieces of that strategy to do that block redevelopment. So I would think about the 250 unit as kind of, it's a baseline that we know just, or that we're thinking is kind of the target based on things that we know have been proposed and are likely coming down the pipeline, but that the housing strategy work is additional additive upon to that. Some of those units, again, may already be occupied, but that's improving kind of overall conditions. So.
And market value.
Yep.
Michelle, do you think the work will generate a ranking of the various blocks or the 23 regions or whatever? What do you expect it's going to look like when we get?
Are you asking in terms of kind of conditions on blocks?
I guess I'm curious to know whether there will be a ranking of all of the 23, or even if it really gets to a granularity of block by block, or house, or parcel by parcel, is it going to be, this is the lowest hanging fruit, this will be the easiest to make a difference, has the greatest opportunity because it has the greatest need? What do you expect you're going to get, I guess, in terms of the granularity of the report?
Yeah, so there's a lot of granular data that we have already from the first phase of the study that we did. As you may recall, we did a block-by-block condition survey of all residential structures in the city. So that's one really important baseline that we have of kind of exterior conditions. So part of what we're looking to see as implementations move forward is the number of blocks where we're able to kind of see those conditions go. If you were at a 3, which is kind of moderate condition, then can we move you up to a very good condition or an excellent condition? So looking for those sorts of things. I think to your question, there's a lot, I can't really answer it because there's a lot of different ways that you could slice it. If you're talking about just which is the block that needs the least amount of interventions because all the properties are in awesome shape, we could probably tell you figure out the handful of blocks that had all 1s on their properties, but those aren't the ones that we're looking to target. So I think it's going to have to be really, we are looking very closely at areas that are kind of in like the tipping point neighborhoods that we've talked about quite a bit. So transitional areas where they're in kind of average condition overall right now. A lot of the residents that live there make too much to qualify for your typical HUD programs and resources that are currently available. But that doesn't mean that they're doing awesome or have a lot of additional resources to be able to make the kind of improvements above and beyond what is already there. So there's additional levels of resources that we understand we need to be able to invest to, if the goal is to kind of counteract that mounting deferred maintenance. So I think those are areas that we're all looking to prioritize. The general strategy, we expect that we'll be pairing kind of those areas that are kind of transitional, trending a little bit more stronger, also with areas that we know are kind of legacy areas that there is continued need for a lot of concentrated investment in them. And the goal really is to see kind of what can we do to try to leverage momentum of those areas. So
Don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm not quite clear yet on one thing. Will CZB give us the answer to your question? Which is the right neighborhood to go to?
yeah, so I think that where we would ultimately be looking to start with those first 4 wave small area plans are that effectively is that answer.
Great, that's what I expected. And then are they also going to help us figure out where the $1.5 billion is going to come from, or where there's a more likely opportunity to secure funding to deal with those 4 areas?
Sure. So I think that's really where the value of this comes into play. They have proven to be very excellent just in terms of kind of thinking through some of the strategies and being really, I think, kind of tough in terms of how they're exploring just what we have currently in place in terms of tools that exist, and just, I think, good kind of thought partners and kind of what do we need to do additionally. Obviously, they can't do it for us. It's incumbent upon us kind of as a community to figure out what it takes to get it done. They can make recommendations all day, and it's up to us to figure out how to move forward with them. So,
Thank you. And thank you for playing traffic cop for the city on this project, and the CNI one as well.
happy to do it. All right.
Any other questions for Michelle?
My question would be is, who do you think you would partner with? Would you partner with somebody like a home headquarters that's very involved with the community and very involved in doing stuff like this already?
I think we're looking for kind of partners across the spectrum. So certainly Home Headquarters has a specific lane of things that they do very, very well in terms of their lending capacity. I think we're also going to look, again, kind of going back to the idea that on a given block you have any number of different situations with properties. We'll increasingly be looking to see what we can do to create opportunities for local developers that are here, local rental property owners, local owner occupants, local people that are renting that are interested in becoming owner occupants. I think we're really committed to, once we determine kind of those 4 geographies that we're starting with, we're going all in on those geographies that we're starting with. And then the idea is that we come up with kind of based on the needs that we have there, we work with what we have there. We figure out what additionally we need to layer in to help that block get to where it needs to be in terms of improving conditions.
Right, and when you target a block, and say if you go down there, you're gonna have some older citizens that on a fixed income. How are we gonna address their situation to help them bring this stuff up so it doesn't become another burden on them? Because
So-
what we don't need is you guys coming down on a piece of property. The person can't afford to get a loan. Now they feel they're gonna lose their home. That's what we don't want.
Sure. Yeah, so I think kind of that's all part of the discussion. So I think in those types of situations, we want to make sure that we have additional programs in place at the city level to ensure that there's some on-ramps for those folks who kind of, if we are to be successful, that does mean that taxes are potentially are going to increase for people. We want to make sure that people that are already there, that doesn't become a destabilizing force for them. So making sure we have things in order at a local level, working with the assessment office to do that. I also think where that comes into play, so neighborhood development also is very involved in the foreclosure prevention process for any properties that do fall behind on their taxes. We don't want to be seeing more people that are coming into our pipeline as a result of this work that we're doing in this lane. So I think really working to see what we can do to make sure that people have good transition plans in place for their properties. A lot of folks that might not have wills, we see a lot of properties that end up getting caught up just as a result of not having that kind of stuff in order. So making sure that we have, we're able to kind of connect people with the right local partners who can get those in place for them, so that their house is able to be something that kind of for their family becomes an asset that's building wealth as opposed to kind of an additional drain. So.
I had a similar question and chatted with Kathy about it a little bit. The steering committee's engagement is critical to this, and the steering committee includes representatives from home headquarters, land bank, contractor, and to me, that sort of, if the steering committee stays very engaged, has this interaction, I feel better about it.
I mean, it'll make a big difference. Because, I mean, you have some real problems down there, and we don't want them just sending code enforcement coming down on the residents. Now, they don't know what to do, and, you know, the city is quick to find someone. You know, and sometimes when you don't have the funds to do certain things, there's a reason why it's not being done. And we need to really look at that and address those situations.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a top of mind priority for us as well.
And I think that's the key and the secret to being able to go block by block, right? Parcel by parcel. Now I'm forced to talk to you because I'm working on your parcel.
And we have a better chance of making them work if we could come up with a realistic plan.
Yeah.
That, you know, don't force people out, but
Exactly.
let them know we still want them there. We just wanted to help them.
Exactly. And increase their value. Sorry, Sue.
No. And I think what Michelle is trying to convey, and I don't want to speak for her, but exactly to that point, within any given block, there are different issues. And so there's not one size fits all, right? Home headquarters can't fix everything. They can fix some things. They're really good at those things. So I think from my exposure to the steering committee and these reports, it is going to be a generational, one time, like this is so comprehensive. And it is a holistic view. So when we come through your block, what you need is different than what Kathy needs. And so the resources that we're gonna provide to Kathy are gonna be different than the resources, hopefully, this program's gonna be able to provide for you, taking into account all of those things. So it is monumental, but it is a really good program to address all the concerns you're talking about, Kathy.
I think also too, where the IDA's assistance kind of in helping to finance the third phase of this, it's really essential for us is that we intend to leverage our team of neighborhood planners to be doing a lot of the kind of house-to-house outreach and really kind of building relationships with the neighbors, understanding kind of what's going on with their particular situation so that we have all of those kind of specific details well documented. Whereas otherwise, if we were to try to do something like this in-house, not only would it be less effective because it would be kind of in-house facilitation, it's not, I think just having the ability to have additional exposure to a firm that has been doing this work in many, many different cities kind of across the country is a big value add, making sure that we have the kind of in-staff capacity of that continuity of staff that are getting to know neighbors and making sure that we understand those situations really directly, I think is a major priority for us.
authorization of the funds.
Motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ricky. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Michelle. Any further business, any other items up for discussion that anyone has? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Happy end of January, everybody. We'll see some of you in February.
That they say the table.
Yeah.